Um, when I came up with this idea many years ago, I mean it's now more than 18 years ago, right? And when we came closer to the first 70,000 tons of metal, I knew when it works, it's something special, and that people would come from all over the world, yes, but not to that magnitude that we have nowadays. Like that this year we set a new record, you just said it yourself, that we had 81 different nations on board. That's really completely beyond me, I mean, I expected maybe 25, maybe 30 or something like this, but never that it grows to this level. Also, that the impact it has for certain people, on their life, that really, like that people basically plan their entire year around 70,000 tons of metal. And this is the highlight of the year that they are looking forward to. It's not anything that I would have expected, or maybe I didn't think that far, but it makes me extremely humble, extremely proud, I mean, especially bringing all these people from all over the globe together, and creating this atmosphere of intercultural understanding. I think, without talking too much about politics, but bringing people together, making them understand that we are all the same, maybe nowadays is more important than ever. The advice that I would give me, like, of course, in retrospect, I can say, I mean, it's worked out great, like, do everything the same, There were some really tough times over the years. We don't want to talk about the pandemic, for example, The only thing that I would probably tell to myself is believe in yourself, but somehow I did, because when I came up with this idea, and everybody was laughing, right? Like everybody was like my friends, but also people that I within the industry, or people that I asked for investment in this in the beginning. They were like, Andy, you're fucked in the head, I mean, this is never gonna work, like they sink the ship, people will fall overboard or so. But I trusted this idea is so crazy, this is gonna work, and this is, if I could go back in time, this is what I would tell to myself, yeah, believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, Bringing all these people together from all over the globe, bringing people together that come from countries that are right now at war with each other, and they come for the same reason, for the love of the music, on this same ship, and it's one happy heavy metal family, one global family. This is the biggest satisfaction, standing afterwards, when it's finally built, on the side of the biggest open air stage structure that ever sailed the open seas, our pool deck stage, right? And look into all these happy faces, that's a huge satisfaction. Knowing that these people, like, with a lot of hardships come from all over the globe, from all continents, that is, that's something that's sometimes very hard to describe in words. Funny enough, just a few days ago, I was sorting some memorabilia, some 70,000 tons memorabilia, and I was thinking exactly of this, that at one point, not like every year, but maybe when we reach a landmark of 20 years or whatever, I would actually like to do some kind of a little exhibition of like historic pieces, like old posters, the first flyers from the first years, but also, and I'm pointing on your tripod there, there is some actual real pieces of art that people made with the 70,000 tons logo. I have some beer mugs. There is this guy that is for many years, like that does those mugs out of leather, You probably have seen it.
Sure.
And he made one with 70,000 tons of metal logo, and it says a skipper on it. And for me, you know, there is people that made pieces of jewelry, you know, with the 70,000 tons of metal logo and gave it to me. Well, I can't really put the people with the tattoos in the exhibition, but maybe pictures from those, you know, which I actually don't even know how many there are. I know there is dozens of people that actually have that logo tattoo. But yes, so doing an exhibition 1 year on the boat, this is definitely something that I would like to do. Generally about exhibition, we talked about this within our management team actually yesterday. It's really funny that you ask, that we probably, because you know there is an art gallery, the ship has art, whatever, you know, which is not metal art. We had in previous years sometimes certain graphic artists on board, you know, that showed some of their work. So this is maybe something that we want to intensify. Maybe also giving some artists the possibility to actually sell their art on board. So yes, there is ideas. About activities with bands, sometimes some bands they have ideas, you know, like this year we had this like with the trading card games, you know, but it needs to come in some cases, or it should come from the bands too, because for everybody, including the artists, it is kind of a vacation, right? You know, so we don't want to put too much on their shoulders. The bands play already 2 shows, they already do the meet and greets, you know, and then yes, some of the musicians do some clinics or do some excursions or whatever. But we also don't want to overload it, you know. But there are some ideas, yes. You know that there is like a kindergarten actually on board, and the number of kids is like, it's a humble number, it's not very, very big, you know. But we notice when we see from the statistics, we always have kids like they are like 1, 2 years old, 3, 4, 5. So sometimes it's cool for the parents, you know, so that they can watch shows or maybe also have a drink or have some parents' time, you know, like without the kids, you know. So actually having for them something that they can, like a kindergarten, to drop them off. You actually bring a good point there. We never actually thought about putting a metal aspect into that kindergarten, which is run by the cruise line, but I mean, it's really, really cool, like in an interview like this, that you bring actually something that is an idea that we could discuss with the cruise line to bring a certain heavy metal aspect also for the kids, you know.
Yes, because we have in Colombia we have friends that have the little kids, but they can't go to the cruise because they are under 2 or 3 years. And why I can't do it with my kid?
You can. 6 months. 6 months is the minimum. Yes.
No.
You can. This is for medical reasons. It's the same thing like women that are pregnant should not be pregnant more than 6 months. You know, because you know it can. You know, complications, and you know there is an infirmary on board, but there is not a hospital or whatever. There are not specialized doctors. Also for children, you know, this is also why children must be, the minimum age is 6 months. You know, but with 6 months you can sell. Yes. There is not one. There is not one. You know that for some bands we had to work many years, maybe not to convince them, but until the timing was right. Bands are on tour in Europe, in Japan, wherever. Bands are in the studio. You know, often a musician from that band plays also in a second or in a third band, and he's on tour with that band, you know. So for some bands, we had to work for many years, you know, and until it finally worked, you know. I always say there is not one dream bank, but one day we will have had them all. You know? It's hard to explain to people like this feeling that you're having. Once you are in the terminal and you walk over this gangway with all these people from all over the world and with all these banks, and you know there is no backstage, there is no, that everybody is like a VIP, you know, that everybody is the same. How can you describe this to somebody? Look, I have goosebumps actually telling you this right now. You have to experience it yourself. You have to come. I'm, you know, not just material that I receive, and I have to be honest, you know, like, because I'm traveling a lot too, you know, sometimes it takes like 2 months or so until I get all the new material again. So I have just recently actually received a whole stack of CDs. I had not the time yet to listen to them. But it's not only listening to new material. I like to see bands play live too, you know. So this is what I do in lots of my trips too, like go to festivals or go to local shows where there was sometimes also some local bands playing. And I said this before already, you know, over the years we had often bands from Colombia too. Mm-hmm. There is a great amount of talent here that has not really reached the world stage. So kind of paying tribute to the great followership we have from survivors here from Colombia, but also of course to the amazing amount of talent that is around in this country. I'll make sure that in the future we will also have a lot of Colombian bands again. Well, you know, I'm saying, you know, like, I mean, you have to be lucky. The easiest is always, look, you go to our website, you know, there is like a contact form. You know, our website is even in Spanish. Mm-hmm. We have a Spanish customer service too. Simply write us a message there, and they will point you in the right direction. So if you really want to send a CD or something like this, the customer service team afterwards, they will answer you via email and give you the address where to send it. Naturally, you can also use the social media channels, whatever, you know, with direct messaging there. But going on the website, you choose the contact form, you know, and send an email like this. This is the best way, actually. Look, I mean, I said before, I think it is very, very important to bring people together. I said maybe nowadays more than ever, you know, because it's we as a as humanity as a whole, you know, we're all the same, you know. Doesn't matter where you come from, what color your skin has, or what color your passport has, what language you speak, what race you come from, you know, what religion or no religion you believe in, you know. We're all the same. We're all the same, you know. We all have the same problems. We also have all the same dreams, you know. And these big problems that we have in the world, migration, wars, climate change, whatever, just to name a few. These are problems that don't end at borders. For me personally, borders are only lines and maps, you know, and in people's minds, you know. And these problems we can only solve together as a humanity. This is why we need to come together. We need intercultural understanding, you know. I believe, look, for people here from Colombia, for Colombian citizens, as like for most everybody from Latin America, except of Chile, you need a visa, you know, to get to the US. I know processing times already in the past under previous US governments have been extremely long. I mean, I was sometimes shocked that in some embassies, some US embassies, it takes like 1.5 years or almost 2 years until you get a visa interview, which is unbelievable. You go to other countries and it's like 3 days, you know, which is not really fair, you know. What I can recommend to people, start the process early, you know, but also, like, if you have nothing to hide, you know, if you don't have any crazy ideas and want to kill some people, want to blow up a building or whatever, there is nothing to hide, you know. I believe also, because of the new US administration that has their certain ideas and that is maybe more loud, more vocal about some of their ideas, what they want to change than previous administrations, there is a bigger spotlight in the press too. It always happened already 2 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you know, that people that had a valid visa, had valid passport, everything right, you know, that were turned away at the border. But not just in the US. The same thing also happens in countries in Europe and all over the world, you know. Sometimes a customs officer don't like your face, you know, even if you have a visa, he has the right to send you back, you know. Nowadays, because of the new administration, it is more visible in the press, you know. Of course, it is awesome clickbait for the press, you know, so they have something to write again about. I believe, once again, because look, every day, every single day, hundreds of thousands of people travel to the United States, you know, and go there and don't have a problem, you know. If you have your paperwork in order and you don't want to stay after your vacation in the US, or you have some criminal record, I don't think that you have anything to fear. There is no difference now than it ever has been. It doesn't really affect us because bands that only play on 70,000 tons of metal, they do not need a work visa, you know. As long as they don't also play shows in the US on the same trip, they're technically only in transit, you know. They come as a tourist, you know, maybe they stay a few days before in the US or a few days after, but they're only playing on board, and the shows are all in international waters, you know. So therefore they don't need any work visas, you know, so it doesn't really affect us.
But the immigration, they don't have problem with the baggage for the equipment, the instruments?
As long as the bands really don't do anything on US soil, you know, I mean, this is what we're doing for 15 years, you know. Customs knows this. We have checked this at the very beginning via multiple immigration lawyers in the US, and it is totally legal, it is totally fine, you know. Because, yeah, sure, you can bring your guitar as long as you are in Miami or wherever else, just don't take it out of the case, you know, leave it in there. You know, so.
Okay.
It comes with a whole set of challenges too, you know. I mean, first of all, you need to have a ship, you know. Like most of the ports in like other places, there are destination ports and not embarkation ports, you know. Like people, they usually sell out of Florida or, well, some from Galveston, Texas and whatever, you know. But so you need to have a ship there. But in principle, there is ideas a long time around for maybe one day doing other cruises, maybe in other countries, maybe in other continents, you know. There is many continents, there is not just one ocean, you know. And I don't say where it is, you know. I mean, you also have some cruise ports here in Latin America. I mean, you have cruises in Santos in Brazil. I mean, you have cruise ships in Cartagena here in Colombia, right? So there are plans and there are ideas for other projects anyway that have actually already been before the pandemic, before COVID hit. Now that of course threw us many years back, you know, but these ideas are not necessarily dead, they are still around. One thing that I have to say, however, it will not be 70,000 tons of metal. It will be called something different, you know, because 70,000 tons of metal, it's a family too, you know. It's people that have been going there for many years. So I don't want to rip this family apart. There will be 70,000 tons is one, that one is for the foreseeable future at least, selling out of Florida. Yeah. This is the unlimited drink packages that exist on regular cruises, and that some other cruises do. I had this discussion with the cruise line, but they don't really want to do it, you know. And it's not so much a money question, it's more a liability question, you know. Because at the end of the day, we are still on a ship out in the ocean, you know. So you don't want to have somebody that is completely drunk falling overboard. Like, if you have an unlimited drink package, how do you want to cut somebody off that had enough, you know? It's kind of hard, you know. So this is why, and we all know we like to party, you know, and we like to drink, you know. And 70,000 tons of metal, not everybody, but a lot of the survivors are a good drinking crowd. The cruise line knows this, you know, so they want to also have this safety limit, you know, of saying, okay, you have enough, you know. The idea has been there too. Now, two things to think about that, you know. Number one, we talked about the visas before, you know, so as soon as you play somewhere on land, you know, it's not international waters anymore, so then we may have a visa issue. The other thing is, actually 3 points. The other thing is logistics, you know, equipment. It's maybe not so easy and also financially viable, you know, to bring a whole stage somewhere to Jamaica or whatever, you know, and build it at the beach there just for a few hours. But also, I think the concept works actually very well, that the people have a break, you know, because, you know, on the ship it basically goes almost around the clock, you know. So it's kind of nice. I think, you know, that people actually have this day of vacation somewhere on the beach, or go on a zip line, or go scuba diving, or whatever, or just go swimming or something like this, without any concerts, you know. But still actually have all the bands and musicians around, you know, and do something different, yeah. Be on vacation with them. We are trying to limit it as much as we can. Yes, as we know, everything is getting more expensive. This is just a fact of the world, you know, the coffee now doesn't cost any more what the coffee cost 5 years ago. The bottle of beer doesn't cost now any more than what it cost 5 years ago. And that is the same thing around the world. I'm sure you have this in Colombia, you have this in Japan, you have this in Sweden, you have this in South Africa. And it's the same thing in the US, and you're on a ship too, you know. But we try to really be very reasonable. I know for a lot of people it is very expensive and they have to save the whole year. So we try to limit the price increases as much as we can, you know. It's going, I mean, prices will need to go up because everything becomes more expensive. The ship becomes more expensive, the whole equipment becomes more expensive. The artist fees have increased too, you know. But so we try to limit as much as we can, but there will be a slight price increase, but it will be a single-digit increase. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, when you announce bands?
Soon. I actually said in some interviews a few weeks ago that we are about 2 weeks away. As always, you know, there is always some obstacles that we have to find. It is now very soon, so I hope, very soon, you know. So I hope that before the end of the month of May that we can start to announce the initial line. Yes.
Okay.
But I will also promise you one thing, and I promised this 2 years ago, and then always some things happened, you know. In this case, it was something last year in my personal life that took me out for quite a while. Life sometimes happens, you know. And I think we had a really good start last year, but then things got really, really late. When you don't succeed at first, try again, you know. So I make sure that this year a much bigger number of the bands is announced much earlier, you know. That I will promise, and I will.
Okay.
That will, I mean, that as long as we are on this class of ship, next year we're going on to be on the Freedom again, like we have been on the last year, you know, or the last 2 years actually. This year we were on the Independence, but you know, it's the sister ships. The differences within the ship are minimal, but the capacity is more or less the same. And I know some people, you know, some people want more, some people say actually it's fucking crazy, you know, like why can't you do less bands or whatever, you know, but then we don't have bands to play at 6 o'clock in the morning. But we would once again change somehow the mechanics that we have. I don't know if you know that, but like I had always this idea before the very first 70,000 tons of metal, that we have a ratio of per musician there is maximum 10 fans, you know. So when we had the smaller ship in the past, where we could sell around 2,000 tickets, I said like, okay, we need 40 bands. A band on average has 5 members. Some have 3 or 4, but then you have these crazy folk metal bands that have like 11 or 13, you know. So let's just say 5, you know. 40 times 5, 200. 200 musicians, 2,000 tickets. Now we are on a bigger ship with 3,000 tickets, so 60 bands. 60 times 5 is 300, so the ratio is still 1 to 10. That creates this special atmosphere that, you know, like you have musicians everywhere, you know. So therefore, short answer, sometimes I make things really long, you know. Short answer, yes, it will be the same. 4 days, 1 destination, 60 bands, 3,000 tickets. Also there are certain agreements with the cruise line, what we can do and what we cannot do, but there is a possibility, and we're discussing actually something along the lines more or less what you described, which could be possible for the 70,000 tons festival merch. For the bands, it's inherently hard because sometimes until they arrive at the ship, we don't even know what they're bringing, you know. So, but for the festival merch, there is thoughts what we can do about this, yeah. Survivors, this is Andy, the skipper of 70,000 tons of metal. It would be my humble pleasure to welcome you next year on the 29th of January in Miami, Florida, when we set sail once again for 70,000 tons of metal. The original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise. See you there!